Hello everyone and welcome back to Wargame Red Dragon. Every once in a while there are games that you play where you just know that you're going to take your lumps and it's going to be fine. And that's what Han and I had going up today against Feiner, who's a Brigadier General, and a little bit of a letter salad over there who's a captain, who I'm not going to even try to pronounce, but it was a good game. I think there was good sportsmanship on both sides and definitely some things that we were able to learn from our impending definite defeat, so spoilers there, but not really. And if you don't like spoilers, or actually if you do, go ahead and leave a like, share, subscribe, and all that YouTuber nonsense that I have to ask for every time for a video to do well, which, while slightly aggravating, is just the simple truth of it. So I'm taking Baltic Motorized, and I'm headed up toward Boris. My hope is to have a light hold in this forest here, a light hold up top, and then really be able to clear out Boris to capitalize on the strengths of Baltic Motorized, and then be able to use a little bit of a squeeze here in this forest to help me out in the main part of Fetter and deny really this section of forest to my opponent. However, a little bit of bad luck here as my allies KA-52 did die. Maybe shouldn't have, well, not necessarily what you'd expect, because the PH-2 Tiger is outranged by the KA-52, and so we were hoping to get that nice pick there, deny Feanor some scouting as well as some nice air power, but not quite able to pull that off, and that is going to have lasting repercussions down the line. So I'm smoking here as well, trying to deny any sort of long-range firepower, as well as give the impression that I had a lot more going on than I did. So a couple of Telecoder 84s. These guys kind of like Promises in that they have 5 HE power, not quite as much ammunition, but they are amphibious, and I don't know, I like them quite a bit as well. Then I have some stuff going around the side, just trying to get a nice ambush in. Usually what can happen here is if your opponent takes stuff through the forest and you end up in a pit fight in this section, getting some stuff around the side can really take their supply line by surprise and have some good impact. But we're going to take a look over for just a minute here at Han and his fight with Feiner, because his Motostrelki are caught out sort of in the center, and then double 2A4. That's a lot to deal with. 245 point, really good tanks, and there's a single T-72BU back here trying to deal with them, but he's trying to deal with everything. And this was one of the comments I think that Feiner made after the game had finished, which was infantry kind of getting isolated, and the T-72BU sort of not really being enough punch on its own, and then getting isolated once the infantry is gone. So unfortunately, probably, I want to say that was Spetsnaz Gru over there on that side of the BTR-90, because we have its mirror image over here taken out with a single anti-tank shot, but some nice work being put in by those BTR-90s, frag rounds killing Natra, and that's not to say that this was nothing done well, because there definitely were a couple of really nice plays here from Han, and it does manage to slow down Feiner for just a little bit of time, which honestly, if I was matched up on this side against Feiner, that would be the best that I could hope for as well. Pion and some Iroquois holding in that side, and then there's a big rifleman push, so there's base riflemen and then a couple of riflemen 90 mixed in. This is pretty bog standard. Base riflemen don't have good AP at all, but the 90 version do, with 19 AP power and a nice rate of fire, so I'm going to have to rely on a couple of light tanks to try to slow them down as I bring up reinforcements. Some in KTs headed over to Boris, and then some headed over for that section of forest as well. We are able to take out my opponent's Kiowa, and then because I didn't really have any resistance that we were running into, we're just going to keep moving. And, I mean, why not, was really the question of the day. I'm encountering some things. I think there were some Rangers over here as well that we'll find in just a second. Yep, Rangers. But Rangers versus Kartenjäkeri, I'd rather be the Kartenjäkeri and by a mile. And you can see that right away. And Rangers are no slouch. Shock infantry training, but the M240 just simply isn't as good as the RPD. And the Swami KP is very nice as well. Plus, with backup from the KRKKs, that's going to be a tough thing. So I've pulled my tanks back, I've pulled my recon back here, and then I have a couple of KTs that were over on that side trying to help out as Jäkeri 90 get unloaded, and these guys should be able to stand pretty well against base riflemen. Maybe not against them with small support, but that's sort of, I mean, there's only one double squad of small that I saw on that side, but we are losing this side as well. So on the top, I'm Gregory of Verkenning and some KCT, finishing out the Sapper-Z and BTRTs on the top, and then most of this has been lost. Just the T-72BU here trying to do the best that he can, BMPT as well doing the best that he can, but FL-12s are actually pretty decent matchups against the BMPT, at least if they're in range to penetrate that 15 armor, which wasn't at the time, but there was a Pion back there, well, not a Pion, what's the Leopard Verkenning, that's it, the Dutch recon tank, and that takes him out. So it's a big loss, a lot of points, and that whole flank is getting crushed, but Speaking of, getting a little bit crushed, M1A1 Abrams here taking a bit of a pounding, Radical Yakri getting those APA losses online, 20 rounds per minute, and the M1A1s might have gotten a little bit greedy here. They're 115-point tanks, you can't afford to throw them away, and the Yakri 90 are pushing back. Not to mention the KT support, XA180 support, there's still a Pion back here, and down to 2, panicked, stunned, APA loss on the way, one of those Abrams goes down, and that's a fierce, heavy price to pay for a little bit. I mean, it's a nice offensive, and had it succeeded, I would have been in quite a bit of a bind. But we're very close to the spawn here, and even with this captain, I've never really seen this push succeed. I mean, I have KTs up around the side now, because this section was really kind of not held very well. And then Iroquois Yakri were able to get an Igala online, take out a couple of helicopters, and then we are able to just deny the next round of pushes in here. I mean, MBT-70s are going to be hard to deal with, but that's what you have Ruskas and Koriyama for, and between the two, I felt actually kind of okay. If the whole game had gone like this side did, I'd feel pretty good, because we have a nice hold, we have a lot of numbers, we're able to push back an offensive here, but unfortunately the BU just got completely outnumbered, and I think there were 1, 2, 3 2A4s, so 2 here, and then 1 coming up as well. 3 2A4s for Feiner, and we're barely 5 minutes into the game, so it's interesting to see what a Brigadier General buys, and I wasn't expecting that many 2A4s, that's for sure. I think the Dutch deck was, by the way, an attempt to sort of not necessarily go easy, but not necessarily go super try-hard either on us, because Dutch is generally considered to be not the most tuned of decks, shall we say. So thanks to Fenner for that, because I mean, it was brutal, right? So I was focusing over here, we're getting things going, Han's telling me, hey, you're in a little bit of trouble. Then I look back over, I'm sitting there going, yeah, we're in a bit of trouble. I think that's definitely an accurate statement. I mean, it's not necessarily unrecoverable either, because you think about it, Boris and Gregory balance each other. Usually, this side, I'd say, has an advantage, because it's relatively easy to get to the town here, and if you can hold it against an opponent that you're roughly equal with, then you can deny them their +1 while having a relatively easier fight over Boris for your own +1, and that can become a points asymmetry. But I mean, Brigadier Generals are Brigadier Generals for a reason, and that offensive was just brutal, merciless, fast, everything that it needed to be. Replacement M1A1, by the way, and I was trying to get just a little bit of a distraction down here with the Terra Musties. You can see we do get a couple of things to run away. The Rifleman backing off, this is sort of what I wanted, as I'm trying to figure out a couple of ways to go forward. I did actually load a couple infantry back onto KTs. These guys, believe it or not, are amphibious and quite fast, 45 kilometers per hour. And I was thinking to myself, well, maybe I can get these guys across the water and do something? I don't really know. But there was an immediate response to the smoke. So some Rangers moving that way, the MBT-70 trying to get those Soleil Cs online, and I wasn't really expecting that, but thankfully for me they have really bad armor. Really bad accuracy, but yeah. So now, because Feiner's cleared out that section, and losing this forest is really, really horrible for us on the map, that means everything here is coming up top. We're going to lose Feder, the 2A4s wipe out my Pion and the Iroquois Yakri without too much trouble or even a single point of damage, and with that, now this is unrecoverable, because we can lose Gregory, and still if we hold Feder we're okay, but we're no longer holding Feder. I've lost most of my point buys there, and my Yakri unfortunately didn't do too well trying to get into center to surprise the captain here, and yeah, it's just, I mean, we got good feedback from Feiner, and that is the key of it to me, because from my perspective, and why I do these replays, why I do these videos, is because I like learning from the games. I like learning from losses. I like learning from wins, because even the best of wins you don't do perfectly, and even the roughest of losses, there's still glimmers of hope, and we had a couple. That early engagement with helicopters could have gone our way, probably should have gone our way, and would have been pretty impactful, denying forward recon. And it's just sometimes the bad roll of the dice, and then a little bit of different force composition from both of us would have made this a lot easier. If I'd had a better response to the captain here, we would be, moving forward down into the center, and maybe would have been able to stay in the game if we could put some pressure on this side. But it just, I don't know. I know some people who don't like losing. My fiance, by the way, one of them. But for me, within reason, it's usually enjoyable, because the next time we play Feiner and the captain, I hope to put up a better fight because of this loss here today. So, many thanks to everyone involved. Let's take a quick look at some of the the units' kills and losses. First off, 1398 to 760 in only a couple of minutes. Brutal, brutal game. 8 minutes of playtime and almost a 2-to-1 sort of KD is that's rough. So Pion did all right, but really not really. Well, I guess having said that, Rangers and M113A3 are not enough to make that cost back. We got eventually walloped by the 2A4 NLs. But my infantry did pretty well. So the Air Corps Yakari got a Cobra and a Kiowa. That's a lot of points for the helicopters there. The KTs did pretty well, fending off a little bit of a US armor push over the river to try and retake Boris. And then, I mean, Radical Yakari usually hold their own musties. Pretty easy to return that investment, killing Rifleman 90 and the LVTP 7A1s. Just generally pretty happy with how the units performed individually, but no real standout stars. So, sometimes that is what it is. Thank you guys for hanging around, and we'll see you again real soon.